It's Christmas Eve 2010, and I won't get this up on the website until early next week because I'm out of town. Again, this is Alex Jones with one of my rare audio blogs. First off, I just want to say this. I talk, and many others talk, about the fact that this New World Order is real, and that these globalists, these social engineers, are not playing games in any way of imagining. I mean, they are deadly serious. They are focused. They study like anthropologists and psychologists. In fact, that's what most of their top engineers are. How society operates, how to control it, how to manipulate it, how to engineer it in a way that basically turns us into servile, domesticated cattle, to where the servile masses actually love their indentured servitude and defend their road to serfdom. So I've just written some notes here I want to go over. And a lot of this is just basic common sense, but there's a war against common sense. And I know that all of you understand these truths, in many cases deeper than I do, but it needs to be restated and stated yet again, because we need to break the general population out of their trance. So let's go over some of these notes. We need real culture. The globalists are waging war against any ancient culture, any system that they don't control. That doesn't mean that every culture or every cultural canon is necessarily good by my gauge or your gauge. The fact is, anything that's authentic and original has to be destroyed, because on the wreckage of that, they can build their New World Order, which is a post-industrial world, the end of the family, the globalist living in high-tech reservations, walled off from the general public, who is collectively dumbed down through government-controlled education, and then finally phased out through one-child policies and other forms of population control and reduction. And so that's why they wage war against culture. I mean, a great example of that is Christmas. And, first Christmas and what it really stood for, peace on earth and fidelity and honor and charity. Coca-Cola, 65, 70 years ago, came out with the famous Santa Claus image of the guy with the big white beard and the red outfit and the big black belt and Mrs. Claus and all that. And that's what most Americans, people worldwide, now think of Christmas. It's like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's only 60 years old or so. And that's iconic now. It's not the little drummer boy. It's not all that beautiful, choral music and Beethoven and things that really uplift the soul. It's turned into a commercialized reindeer and Santa. But even that has been under attack in the last 20 years or so, as the system completely tries to erase it. First, the social controllers and engineers alter it away from what it first was and turn it into something about dwarves from the North Pole and flying sleighs. Then once that's been picked up, once they've been able to set the precedent that they can alter it, then they just try to get rid of it entirely. And it's not Merry Christmas, it's Happy Holidays. And, if a local bank manager puts up a Christmas tree in his office and it can be seen from a window, people file complaints, it's taken down. But meanwhile, you can have all these other religious and cultural celebrations inside the United States and England and other Western nations, because those aren't dominant. They're first setting the precedent to ban the dominant culture with other cultures, so that once the precedent's set, they can basically ban and abridge them all, but also play the different cultures off against each other. In the name of multiculturalism, they actually create angst by always pointing it out, instead of traveling to another country and thinking, oh, isn't it neat to see another culture, or living in America or England and saying, oh, Christmas is part of the culture. They bring in people to then be outraged by it. They teach people that they should be offended by it. And it's even more sophisticated than that, but that's just some of the basic facts. It's very encouraging to see a major rebellion across the board by people that aren't even religious against the attack on Christmas, because it is a family holiday. The system's tried to commercialize it and do everything else, but it's been unsuccessful. and the remake of A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey is such a powerful message. People have such a craving for good, wholesome, original things that aren't part of this, post common sense, post Western culture system. And I'm talking about in the West. The globalists are attacking all the other major systems in Asia and the Middle East and Africa and Latin America. But and of course, Latin America is Western to a great extent with the Portuguese, French, Spanish, British, Dutch. But again, I digress down rabbit trails here. That the globalists are waging war against Western culture because it has property rights, it has the family at its center, it has justice and due process at its center and its heart. And it hasn't been perfect by any means, but undoubtedly, if you study history, has been the finest example of human development and ideas, and the Renaissance that really came to its greatest flowering with what happened here in the United States in 1776. But it goes back to the Gutenberg press. It goes back to the Renaissance coming out of the Dark Ages. The rediscovery of some of the Greek ideals. That is all under fundamental attack, because when you have common sense, when you can think for yourself, when you know that you should value liberty and freedom above all things, you're someone who can't be enslaved easily. And if you study how the Romans enslaved cultures and how the Aztecs enslaved other cultures, or it's the same everywhere, no matter where you look. Similar things were done. It's just they were prototypes of what's being done here in the 20th and 21st century. So we need real culture, and these globalists are trying to remake it right now, fool-driven, where they give us icons that are gangsterish, basketball players or football players or hockey players beating each other up. Our children are taught that's iconic, not being a scientist or an inventor or humanitarian or an explorer or an astronomer. It's just how much bling do you have? So debasing everything down to almost a pirate level of mindlessness and just surface. So the controllers are masters at creating the icons, the idols, because humans are set up very similar to canines, dogs, canine familiaris. And that's why dogs, of course, are the most popular pet worldwide, is because they get along so well with us. And dogs go off an alpha male and alpha female. It's a pecking order. It's how we're designed. So if the system can set up false icons or false alphas, they know that most people who are followers will fall into line and follow that, no matter how destructive it is. And that's why we've seen incredible human aberrations like the Nazis, the Soviet communists, the Chinese communists, the Aztecs. There's many of those crazy examples where human sacrifice, murder, war, invasions, and for people who have basic, decent common sense, it's dangerous and abhorrent, not just because we're bleeding heart humanitarians. And in fact, in many cases, far from it. I've analyzed what I really am at my core. I've got my head screwed on straight. And I have basic instinct. I understand authoritarian tyranny when I see it. I can study it in books and study it in history, but I can see it, I can feel it at my core. I'm threatened by the TSA sticking their hands down people's pants and pulling people's drawers down and putting them through body scanners. And the system is setting the precedent to dominate us and to train us to accept that. Here's an example. I don't hunt a lot these days because I'm so busy. Plus, I don't have time to. When I do hunt, I butcher it and clean it and cook it. I don't just go out and do it for sport. It's more about following that ancient tradition that's ingrained and programmed in me. It's not about enjoying killing animals. But to make a long story short, I learned very young, 6, 7, 8 years old, out dove hunting or quail hunting with my dad or my uncle, that when you've got a gun or when you're in an aggressive mode, animals see it, they sense it, they fly away. But when you're out walking around in the field without a gun, they'll come land right beside you. And over the years, I read some of the histories of hunters around the world, and they've all, whether it's Inuits in the north or Aborigines in Australia, this is in all of the hunting lore that animals can feel your intent. They've got basic instinct. They've got a sixth sense. They've got common sense. Because even if I'm in my backyard, there's a bunch of dove in the trees, then I can immediately feel aggressive intent and just start thinking about how I'm going to shoot them, even though I don't have a gun, and they will fly away. They will run for their lives. If you start looking at them intently and going into a stalking mode, they'll fly away. I mean, again, this is total common sense, but the general public never thinks about this. And people need to think about it. I mean, every bit of my instincts, every bit of my gut tells me we're in trouble, we're in danger. This government is out of control and criminal. We're being oppressed, we're being trained to be slaves. And I'm desperately trying to warn people, desperately trying to get people to alert to the threat. It's like I'm a chimpanzee in the jungle hopping up and down because I see a big cat stalking in, about to basically try to pounce on one of my troop or my crew and eat them. We know through history what predators are. Humans are the super predator on this planet, and there's 6.5 billion of us. And so we don't really engage in predator activities as much against whales or elephants or even dove. This New World Order system is a predatory hierarchical system where we're basically domesticated and bred like cattle, human resources. They have these terms hidden in plain view. We are resources for the elite. And I just want folks to start thinking about their basic instincts, their basic core discernment, what's in their gut, and realizing how much danger we're all in as a society. Continuing here with some of my notes, the social controllers obviously divide and conquer, balkanization. They play us off against one another, and that goes back into the multiculturalism, which if you really study it is never about getting people to get along with each other. It's about having people notice their differences and then playing people off against each other, with the government and the mainstream media playing the part of the referees. And if you look at this one case point example, then you see it everywhere else. It's all about the system as your protector. The system knows best. The billboards are about spying on your neighbors. The billboards are about how your neighbors might be bad. The telescreens going in first 800 Walmarts and now 9,000 plus retail shops with Big Brother announcements about spying on each other. It's about the sky gods up on the fancy TV wearing a nice suit telling you, the little lowly scum, that you're bad and that they're good, when in truth they're the predator class trying to train you to turn off your basic survival instincts. That's what all this fake environmentalism is about. I mean, everybody's a real environmentalist when it comes to not wanting to drink poison water or breathe bad air. But they take all those well-meaning instincts and they repackage it to where now at the end of every nature show or in textbooks, just you see it everywhere. Humans are bad, humans are evil, humans are a scourge, humans are a disease. That's meant to make you not value yourself. That's meant to make you not appreciate the beauty in humanity, so that we reach for the beauty, we reach for what's honorable, we reach for what's good, and in that process make ourselves and society better. No, they want to teach us we're bad. And all the major psychological studies out there, you can pull them up, prove that when someone's told they're bad, told they're going to be failures, told that they're corrupt, told that they're worthless, they become self-destructive and they become criminal. And we see this with what people do to their bodies today. What we all do to ourselves in one way or the other. Because humans are designed to live under incredible stress and to thrive under it. So we've been given this physical piece with plenty of food, plenty of water, but then in that we're becoming fat and slovenly, but there's something more. The system is then adding preservatives and chemicals on record to lower our IQs, to lower our fertility, to stunt us and to hurt us. And that goes into the entire eugenics system. And their social Darwinistic attitude is, if you're dumb enough to do it, you deserve what you get. And there is a common sense truth to that. The globalists do have a lot of common sense to what they do, but it's from a cold-blooded predatory position, which at the end of the day will end up destroying their own system, because they're connected to the rest of humanity as well. But it is true what Ron Paul said a few months ago on my show about the TSA and the groping. If people put up with this, they deserve it. So, the globalists put that choice out there, and then a lot of people basically fall for it. And then when others stand up and say it's bad, the sheep say, hey, don't get me out of my comfort zone. But then that comfort zone gets smaller and smaller and smaller as people accept more and more corruption, as they buy into more and more evil, as they buy into more and more submission. They've already gone along with so much, they defend their position of going along with it that much stronger. And obviously, a lot has been written about that with cognitive dissonance, but we are deep, deep, deep into this. Now, here's a really important point. I don't like the current model that the corporate system is trying to replace, the more ancient common sense systems with, because it's dehumanizing. But I also don't like a lot of things that were in some of the older models. So we need to have a larger debate about what type of world we want to have together. We need to have a discussion about the technocracy that's being built, about the essays being written by the globalists about how the future doesn't need us, and how the elite plan to basically phase out the general population. We need to have a discussion. People need to know that there's more going on than just football and baseball and all these petty things that they've been given to keep their minds occupied so they don't think about serious issues. And overall, that's my main message, is you don't have to agree with much of what I say, but everybody in their gut and intellectually knows that there's a lot of bad things happening and that things are getting worse on more fronts than they're getting better. And we do live in a magical, wonderful world with so much potential. And I think we all need to start having enough respect for ourselves to really appreciate what consciousness and life is, and to try to make this world a better place, because life is so short, but we do live on through the species. And I just look back at my ancestors, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but that strove and did so much to give us the good things we have today. All of that was paid for with blood, sweat, and tears. And we ignore that at our grave peril. Here's my final point. The controllers don't want to give us a head-on fight on any issue. They want us to comfortably just kind of boil in our own juices like the frog in the pot, in that stew of conformity, and slowly basically stew us in this culture of death. And it is a culture of death, and that's the globalist main goal, and it's on record, as we've demonstrated in Endgame and countless other documentaries and radio interviews, and as the elites admit in all their main publications. I mean, it's just legion. That this is their religion, this is their hate letter towards humanity, their hate letter at themselves, and their self-fulfilling prophecy that humanity's dumb and ugly and needs to be removed, and only they, the enlightened ones, can ascend to the next level. And if you look at the TSA, when people said they weren't going to go through the scanners or the pat-downs, they backed off. And they've still backed off to a great extent. But they're going to come back. They don't want to give you a head-on fight, because when you have victories, in standing up you have victory. Even if you lose that battle, you win the war. They want to put pressure on you when you don't want to fight. And then when you want to fight and stand up and speak out, they want to take the pressure off. So again, it's just basic psychology. All of us need to fight every day, peacefully, by speaking out, by saying no, by getting outside our comfort zones at church or the mosque or the synagogue or at the atheist meeting. And it doesn't matter wherever you go, at the university, at the public school, at the checkout line. We need to start exercising being non-conformist, but that doesn't mean be a non-conformist and have pink dreadlocks. And I'm not saying you're bad if you have pink dreadlocks. A lot of people try to express, hey, I'm being a non-conformist, and I see what they're doing. And that's fine. Have short hair, long hair. It doesn't matter to me. My point is the system has kind of engineered things where, you can be a non-conformist and dress however you want. Dress like a cowboy, dress like a clown, dress like a sailor. You can have piercings all over your bodies, tattoos, whatever you want. But don't be a nonconformist when it comes to challenging the corporate Borg or saying no to this sports religion. I mean, you get where I'm going with this. And again, I'm not on some high horse. I eat too much. I eat unhealthy things, even though I know it's bad. I, do other things I know aren't good. I'm intellectually lazy sometimes, even though I understand this information. I go on the radio and just kind of rant and rave because it's easier than actually sitting down and focusing and trying to really develop my thoughts for people. I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm just telling you what I'm covering here is common sense. We need to have a rebirth of common sense and come together and start getting outside the box. Humanity needs to get up off of our knees and say no to the New World Order. I just want to thank all of you over the years who've supported us. I talked about how the system creates icons that are false. Every time people stand up against tyranny, the system sees that as a potential icon that could be real and threaten them, a powerful idea. And so they either try to infiltrate it or take it over, co-opt it, or they try to destroy it. And so that's another reason you see the Tea Party being infiltrated while simultaneously being attacked, because it's a threat. Same reason you see Ron Paul being attacked. Same reason you see myself being attacked and lied about so much. It's because through the work we've done and bringing people together, it can become a model for others to emulate and then surpass what I've done, surpass what the Tea Party's done, surpass what Ron Paul's done. And that's what threatens the system. So remember, many of you listening right now could do greater things than I've done. All of you could do amazing things, but it starts with those little steps every day. God bless you all. I'm going to stop babbling here as I pace around in my hotel room on vacation. But I should take more time off because it really helps me get clarity. And I'll be back next week, obviously, by the time you're listening to this, at Infowars.com. I want to thank my great crew and, again, all of you that have made what we do here possible. I think it's very special.